This is Spacewalker from Spacewalker's Race Shop in Vail, North Carolina. I'm going to do an instructional video on how I cut out the centers of the car and weight pockets to produce a car, what I call super ultralights, commonly called ladder cars, which has been adopted to my style of building. Anyway, we're going to go through this and I'll show you exactly what I do. On this block that I'm working with on a door slammer, the X's are the areas that I'm going to cut out and to reduce the body. It's not going to be this long, but I'll fit the car through the door slammer car. This is a Shelby Cobra car that I'm building as a door slammer. Trying something a little different. Anyway, we'll go to the drill now, and I'm going to do this way. I'm going to cut out this area, and then I'll show you what I do next. Okay, here we go. Okay, I do this in a two-step. There's a thing I'll do after I cut this out. I'll show you. We've got the back weight pocket drilled here, here, and here. And just take an X-Acto blade, put it in here, and rock that back and forth like so. And here. There's your weight out. Then take you a wood rasp or wood file. I'm not going to do all that on camera. Okay, you see I've taken the file, sanded all this out smooth, and as a final check, this is going to be a 5 cube wide car. Just make sure your cubes are fitting in there. Okay, the next step we're going to do, which might be unique, I found after my cars are built, sometimes I'll lose my good drill until I started doing this. This is a piece of 1/64 plywood. If you have trouble finding it, I do sell it on my site. But it's easily obtainable at a hobby store where they sell model airplanes. Anyway, I take and cut it. You can see this 1/64 is easily flexed. It flexes real easy. This in this direction, but in this direction it's stiff. You know, that's the way the grain's going. So you want to cut it where the stiff part will be going across where you've drilled in your axle. Just approximate that. That's just a little bit too thick. Let's cut it down just a little bit more. Measure it across the width of your weight pocket. Mark that, cut that off, pre-fit it. Needs just a little bit more off. Again, this is the stiff part of the plywood. This way there's bend in it. So you want the stiff part running like that. We take a little bit of the Loctite that you buy at Lowe's. That's a thick CA glue. Spread it in there like that. Take your plywood. So we're doing all this before we drill the axle hole. Press that down tight, hold it for a few seconds. Then I take some of the thin CA glue before I do any sanding. Then we'll let that dry for just a bit. The 1/64 plywood that we put in, let me get some light on the subject here, is just a little bit taller than the 1/4 inch body. So what we're going to do is place that on a flat surface and sand that down flush to the body. Flip it over to the other side. I recommend a circular motion. That feels flush. Let's test it on a block. Nothing has changed at this point. The body is setting perfectly flat on the block. Just for your information, this popular wood that I use, that's what I recommend, that I like. It's probably not as light as what they call the sugar pine, but the sugar pine is much softer, and I don't think it holds the axle holes in shape as long as the popular. It's a little bit denser than sugar pine, and that's the main reason I use it, because the axle holes will stay a lot longer than on the sugar pine. This is easily purchased at Lowe's. It's a little bit wider than this, so I have to cut it on a bandsaw to the proper width for a car body. Anyway, you can get one piece for $2.50, $3, whatever it is, something like that, and you can get about 6 car bodies for that price of $2.50 for 6 car bodies. If you don't have a Lowe's available, I do sell these blocks on my site. Now we've cut out the second X. Remember, we put the 1/64 ply in here in the back weight pocket before we cut out the front. That holds the stiffness there. Take your 1/64 plywood, check your grain, see if it bends that way. Very little that way, so we cut this one. And we measure it. Pre-fit it. Apply your Loctite CA glue. Insert your plywood. Make sure a little bit sticking out on the bottom and top of the car, which you're going to sand off. Then I run a bead of the thin CA glue, if I can find it. Here it is. That helps the thicker CA glue cure quicker. Give that a couple minutes to dry. We'll take this to that sandpaper I use on the flat surface is 100 grit sandpaper. That'll cut through the wood real quick. Okay, we've got the back pocket cut, and we put the 1/64 ply. Then we cut this out and put the 1/64 ply in this area here. So we got 1/64 ply here and 1/64 ply here. That makes a very rigid structure, and when we put the top cap on it, it'll even strengthen it more. Check one more time and make sure your cubes are fitting in there. Again, this is a 5 cube wide car. Most of the cars I build and race are 6 cubes wide. What I found is before I started putting this 1/64 ply here and here, I would have problems with the drill changing through the building process of the car. By putting this strength in here, you won't have that problem. It'll retain its shape and won't warp on you. Okay, let's check this for true again. Everything's setting true and flat on the block, so we're ready to proceed. Never drill your car body before you put your top on when you're using this method of the 1/4 inch. Another advantage of the 1/4 inch, you know, the profile of the car is flatter. Another advantage is you don't have to set up a jig and a router, you know, to do all this routing. So if you route, most people that do the routing don't route all the way through the car. You know, their car bodies are thicker. I prefer the 1/4 inch height. Here's a larger piece of 1/64 ply. See how easy it bends? This way it doesn't. So we're going to put the topper on this way for the strength. Let's find a square section on here. We don't want to cut that way, we want to cut this way. This car is not the right length this time, so it's going to be a little bit oversized until we fit the actual drilled body to the car. I prefer keeping it totally intact until I'll cut the length after I've drilled the holes. So we just mark it there, there, and down here. It's a little bit oversized. I'm going to cut this and glue it to the car body. That's another cool thing about the 1/64 ply. It's easy to work with. You can cut it with scissors. This is the flex. This is the way it's stiff. Just make this a little bit longer in the back, and then you can trim that up with scissors across here, across this area. I'm just marking where the glue goes. I better check that to make sure. Okay. Alright. And we use our Loctite. And we're doing all this work before we ever drill the body. Try not to get the glue down where your weights will go, and you'll have a hard time getting them in, so just don't go over the edges. You marked your line, place it there, push down on the block, hold it for a few seconds, and I'll show you the cool thing about trimming this. Take your X-Acto blade while you're pushing down on the block and describe it a few times. And now watch this. Pops right off. Now I take my sanding block that puts this sanding dust in there and helps secure the glue. Do the same thing to the other side, because while I'm doing this, the glue is not totally set up yet. If you sand it, it helps the glue set off and cure. Turn it over on its side, pop it off, just like so. I can still feel the glue's not dry. There, that'll seal it off. And then the back, just take your scissors. There you go, you got it squared up. Didn't get it quite even. Okay. Now, we're ready to mark and drill the axle holes for the car body. Here's another little trick that I think is an absolute must. Using the Pro Body jig, I put my body in here, which squares everything up, and if it doesn't fit exactly snug, then I take 1/64 plywood and wedge it between the body and the body jig. And then I take the actual drill bit that comes with the Pro Body jig. What I'm doing is pre-marking the holes on each side, so when I put it on the block, everything's lined up perfectly. I don't do the front wheels, so that's not necessary. And let's see, where are my pin vise? Anyway, you can see, I hope, that there's a drilled hole here and here. So when you put it on the block and go to drill it on your drill press, you'll be perfectly lined up on each side. That's just my personal recommendation. Okay, the body that we've been working with is now clamped in my block. Here's the rear pre-drilled holes for lined up with the Pro Body jig. I put a short piece of 1/64 poplar wood on the top, so I can clamp down. As you notice, right in this area is where you're going to drill. That's where the weak spot is, and we put the 1/64 ply on each side of it. But if you don't put this wood on there, you're likely going to compress it and maybe distort the drill again. And in the front, this is solid, so you can put some pressure down so the body won't move in the block. Anyway, I think that'll conclude this video. Oh, these, of course, if you like these clamps, which I do, these are available at Lowe's. I hope this has been helpful and maybe give you a few clues. If not, that's okay too.